everyone, welcome to my channel. For my first video I'm going to be doing a how to play guide for the FIFA World Cup Fantasy game. So let's just get started. So before we start looking at the rules for the game, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my background in fantasy games. So I've been playing fantasy games for just a few seasons, but I've had a little bit of success already in those few seasons. So last summer I managed to win the UEFA Women's Euros fantasy game, and then I also finished second this season in the UEFA Women's Champions League fantasy game. I finished in the top 40k of FPL this season, and in last year's FIFA Club World Cup Fantasy game, which is pretty similar to this one, I finished 2.8k. So hopefully how some of my past seasons have gone in different fantasy games is going to help me do well in this World Cup fantasy game. So we're going to start off by looking at the team selection rules for this game. So just like most other fantasy games, you're going to pick 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders and 3 forwards for your team. In the group stage there is a 3 player limit per country for who you can pick in your team, but this does increase throughout the tournament. We're starting off with a $100 million budget for our 15 players, and then this is going to increase to 105 million once we get to the knockout rounds. The players' prices in this game are locked, so you don't need to be worrying about price increases like we have in FPL and getting priced out of moves. As long as you've got the money to afford something now, you're going to be able to afford it when you come to do it. For transfers in this game, we've obviously got unlimited transfers now before round 1 for picking our initial team, and then we're going to be getting 2 transfers in round 2 and then also 2 transfers in round 3. The amount of transfers that we get will also increase during the knockout rounds. If you want to make any extra transfers than the allocated amount that we've got, then that's going to cost you 3 points from your score. So that is different to FPL as well. That's normally a -4 point hit, and this is only 3. So I think that does mean that taking point hits to make transfers is a bit more feasible in this game because it's not going to lose you as many points. The only other thing to keep in mind with transfers is during the group stage you can roll one of your transfers. So if you only use 1 transfer in round 2, you can take 1 of your free transfers into round 3, and then you'll have free transfers for round 3. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the lockout, substitutions and captaincy rules for this game. So starting with the lockout, this is the deadline that you have for making transfers for each round. So the lockout occurs at the kickoff of the first match in each round, and you have to have made your transfers by this point. So it's pretty similar to like what we have in FPL, but the only difference is it's at kickoff, so you're going to get a chance to see the first lineups. So if you've got a player that you're looking to bring in that does play in that first game, I'd wait until we get the team news and then you can make that transfer and bring them in. Something that is different to FPL is how the substitutions work. So if you've played UCL Fantasy or you played Club World Cup Fantasy, you will be familiar with this, but you can make manual substitutions during the rounds. So this means that you can take out any low scoring players for players on your bench that haven't played yet. But the way that this is different to UCL Fantasy is there isn't like a specific substitution time frame like what you have in UCL Fantasy. So it is just as soon as the match is finished, your player becomes an unlocked player, and that means you can move them to the bench. And this is similar for captaincy. So we have unlimited captaincy changes in this game, which means you can swap your captain from a low scoring player to someone that hasn't played yet. The thing you need to keep in mind with these substitutions and these captaincy changes is that once you have subbed off a player who has played or changed the captaincy from a player that's played, that change cannot be reversed. So you can't put them back in your 11 and you can't put the armband back on them. So you've got to make sure that you definitely want to sub a player out and definitely want to take the captaincy off them when you're making the move. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the boosters that are available for this game. So in this game we have 5 boosters. In other fantasy games these are known as chips, so if saying chips you'll probably be more familiar with them, but here they are called boosters. And so the 5 we've got are the wild card, the 12th man, max captain, qualification booster and the mystery chip. So 5 boosters is actually quite a lot for a tournament game like this, and I think that makes this game quite exciting and very engaging. There's going to be a lot to think about. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about each of the boosters. So the wild card is unlimited transfers in the round that you use it. If you've played basically any other fantasy game before, you'll know what this is. Yeah, so it's just as I said, unlimited transfers for that round. Yeah, that's it really. So the 12th man allows you to add an extra player to your squad that isn't already in your selected 15. There are no price restrictions on this. You don't need to worry about leaving money in the bank to be able to afford your 12th man. That's just not how it works. And then the team restrictions don't apply either. So if you've already got a triple up on a team, you can still pick a player from that team for your 12th man. And then the next booster is the max captain. So this automatically selects your highest scoring player to be your captain for the round that you use it. So you don't need to worry about switching your captain, like we said before about how the captaincy works. You just need to activate this booster, and then at the end of the round, whoever has scored the highest will be the player with double points. So it's nice and simple. The next booster that we have for this game is the qualification booster. So this booster allows you to gain 2 extra points for any players that you have in your team that progress to the next round of the competition. So we can only use this from the round of 32 onwards, because that's when the knockouts start and when people start getting knocked out or progressing to the next round. So yeah, it's quite nice, 2 extra points for a lot of your players as long as they progress. And then the other booster we've got is the mystery chip. So this is going to be revealed after the lockout for round 3. And I have no idea what it is yet. So if you've got any ideas of what you think it could be or what you'd like it to be, then you could leave them in the comments, because I'm not really sure. I've not really thought about what I want it to be or what I think it could be. So I'd be interested in hearing some ideas. Some just important things to remember with the boosters is they can all only be used once, and you can only use one of them at a time. And also all of them can be reversed before the lockout apart from the wild card. So you can activate one of them now, and then if before the deadline you decide actually you don't want to play it anymore, you can undo it as long as it's not the wild card. That's the only one that once you've activated it and started making transfers, you can't go back on that. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the scoring system for this game. So for this bit, I have got the scoring system up on my laptop because there was far too much to write down. So I'm just going to have to scroll through it on here. So I'm sorry if I'm looking down a lot in this section, but that was just the best way to do it because there is so much information. So we're going to start by looking at the general points that apply to all players. So firstly, we've got the appearance points. These are the same as what you see in FPL. So it's 1 point for playing up to 60 minutes and then another point for anything after 60 minutes. So your 2 appearance points as standard, like most fantasy games. Assists are also what we used to. That's 3 points for all positions. And then we've got yellow cards and red cards. 1 point for a yellow card, 2 points for a red card. That's minus points, I should say, sorry. Yeah, minus 1 point for a yellow card and minus 2 points for a red card. Own goals are also minus 2 points. And then winning a penalty is 2 points and conceding a penalty is minus 1 point. So yeah, there's a few ways to gain points, a few ways to lose points. But yeah, I think all of them, they're just what we used to, what we see in most fantasy games. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the goalkeeper points. So there's a couple differences to what we used to here. So a clean sheet is worth 5 points instead of 4 points like we used to in FPL. And then the way that goals conceded works is also slightly different. So the first goal conceded, there is no negative points with that, but then every additional goal after that is -1 point. So in FPL, it's only -1 point for every 2 goals, then 4. That third goal wouldn't be an extra minus point, but in this game that is going to be. So that, I think that is quite important actually. That's quite a big difference, that you're going to lose a point from like 3-0 loss, whereas normally that's not something that would happen. A goal scored for a goalkeeper, probably not something we're expecting, but it does happen sometimes, is 9 points. That's slightly lower than FPL. I'm pretty sure it's 10 points in FPL, but I don't think any of us are gonna get that anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Penalty saves are 3 additional points, and it's important to note that this doesn't include penalty shootouts. So if it's a penalty shootout in the knockout and your goalkeeper's saving loads of the penalties, that's not going to be an additional 3 points every time, unfortunately. And then there's also save points, which is just like what we see in FPL, 1 point for every 3 saves made. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the points that are specifically for defenders. So it is 5 points for a clean sheet, just like for the goalkeepers. And then the goals conceded thing is the same as well. Nothing for the first goal conceded is lost, but each additional goal is -1 point. So yeah, I think that is actually going to be something really important to consider when you're picking your defenders, that those clean sheet odds probably are important, because if they go on to lose 3-0, you're going to be losing a few points. And then goals scored is actually 7 points. So that's probably something to look for. You want those defenders that are likely to score goals, whether that's headers from set pieces, or they're a wing back, or they're playing out of position. Definitely want to try and find those defenders that are going to score some goals, because 7 points is a lot. Okay, now the points for midfielders. So midfielders get 1 point if their team keeps a clean sheet. Yeah, that's pretty standard. And then the goals scored is 6. So that's something to note here, is goals scored are all worth 1 extra point than they are in FPL. So 6 points for a goal. So same thing with midfielders as for defenders. You're looking for the ones that are going to score the goals. Midfielders do get 1 point for every 3 tackles made. But from what I've seen, there is a few players that are going to hit that 3 tackles to get 1 extra point. But I don't think there's going to be many that are getting 6 or 9 to get 2 or 3 additional points. So although that's something definitely to consider when picking players, it's probably not going to be the main thing. I think we're still looking more for the attacking threat of the goals and the assists. But something that I do think is going to come along with that, especially down the goals and assists route, is that every 2 chances created gets 1 extra point. So something to think about with that is probably players that are on free kicks and corners, because that could end up being a lot of chances created just by being on free kicks and corners, basically. Right, okay, now for the forwards. So forwards don't have very many routes to points at all. It's just goal scored is 5 points. It is definitely nice that it's more than just 4 points like you get in FPL. And then every 2 shots on target is 1 point. So that's it for forwards. There's not much going for them. So the forwards you want looking to pick need to be ones that you think could get multiple goals, like your Mbappes, your Haalands. That's what we're looking for. Those players that can get 2 or 3 goals in a game to really try and rack up those points, and also players that are good at shooting on target, because that's their only other way of getting extra points. Okay, and finally for the scoring system, we've got 2 extra ways of getting bonus points. So these apply to all players. So the first one is a goal from a free kick is an extra point. So I mentioned free kicks before for midfielders, for those chances created, but it could also be good for if they score from a free kick. So that definitely, I think for me, is something I want to target. I want to get those players in there on free kicks for those chances created and for the extra points for the goals. And then the other bonus point is the scouting bonus. So this is for any player that is under 5% owned in your team. You get an extra 2 points if they score more than 4 points in a match. So yeah, we want to be looking for those differential players. Something to bear in mind when trying to find differentials, if you find a player that's like 4.9% owned, or even at the minute if they're like 4% owned, and you think, oh, I'll put them in because they're going to get those extra 2 points, by the time we get to that deadline they're probably going to be over 5%. So you're wanting to look for ones that are probably like under 2% to secure that they're going to stay under 5%. And that is everything for the scoring system. So I think it's a nice scoring system. It's got some similarities that make it easy to understand from what we know in other games, but then there's also some other nice routes to points, and I really do like that the goals are all worth an extra point. Okay, so that is everything for my how to play guide. I hope that has made the game a little bit easier to understand for you, so that you now know what you're doing. I didn't go into too much detail about the boosters there in this video, and that is because I'm going to do a separate video covering the boosters in more detail, where we're going to look at the weeks that I think are best to play them, and I'm also going to include my own pretty much finalised booster strategy for the tournament, and I'm hoping to have that video out on Wednesday. So if you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, and hopefully I will see you on Wednesday for that booster strategy video. Bye.